I'm sure everyone's seen it, but here's this crazy N8N workflow that I built
Yeah.
that automates my entire, and all you got to do is comment below and I'll share you the template that you can copy and paste it. And then you copy and paste it and then it doesn't work and everything breaks. I just got so tired of that sort of thing where I'm not going to gate anything. And also I'm going to build something that actually works, that's actually useful, that, and at the same time teach you, because as half of the game, probably more than half of the game, it's just debugging. It's figuring out why things are broken or why you're not getting the exact results that you need, and then going in there, tweaking, learning, and then from there, the next iteration of whatever you're building is going to be better. But nothing ever works right out of the box
Yes.
the way that you think it should be or that they say it can be.
Hey, and welcome to Agents of Insight, where we talk with agent developers and deployers and users of agents. So we get past the marketing hype and get to those that actually build and execute. I'm here today with Brandon Redlinger. Brandon's got an amazing Substack and podcast called Stack and Scale AI. He's a marketing professional, and we're really excited to have him on today to unpack his knowledge and talk about the state of agents in the go-to-market arena and how he uses them and how he sees challenges that companies have and how he helps them out. Brandon, welcome to the podcast and give us your background.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, high level. Gosh, where do I start? I'll keep it as brief as possible, but I started out in sales actually. I was an SDR way before they called it an SDR, dated myself a little bit, but did that for a little bit, carried a bag. But then I really saw how growth and marketing could be that force multiplier for sales. So I went over to the growth. This is back when like growth hacking was a big thing and the more technical side of marketing was coming up, and really dove into that. But most of my career has been in B2B sales, marketing, tech, and I've been with companies like Engagio, Demandbase, Revenue.io, Chili Piper, and in the last year I've been doing fractional and really focused on how companies can automate and scale a lot of what they're doing through smarter systems. And of course, now with the rise of AI, help them leverage AI the best they can.
That's excellent. I'm glad you brought up the origin of growth marketing and growth hacking. And you remind me, who is like the star?
I really point back to Sean Ellis and Morgan Brown. They had growthhackers.com. They wrote the book. I think it's right over there, Hacking Growth. And those were the guys who really got me started on growth hacking. And then ended up fortunate to meet the two guys, and Morgan Brown was actually one of the first guys that I met when I moved out to the Bay Area. Super awesome dude, one of the nicest guys. Him and I are still in touch, and yeah, just great guys all around, and they know their shit.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of a history guy. I think about like the rise of the internet, and then what came after the rise of the internet.com was like blogging. So then it was all about backlinks, and then now we get into a world of growth hacking. Yeah. And then I think in 2011, 2012, there's the first famous quote was Andreessen and how software eats the world.
Yes.
And I think it was 12 or 13 when who was at the Obama White House who said data science is the sexiest job out there.
Yes. Yep.
And so you had the rise of software like SaaS with the Salesforce in 99, and then software eats the world, and you already had growth hacking already there. And then you enter the data science realm, and it takes growth hacking to the next level. And then I think we end up here in this world of go-to-market engineering, which really is systems engineering for growth hacking.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I love that you're really going back in history, because I think you're exactly right. The other thing I would add to that is marketing went through before sales did, because marketing had all the tech. I think people realized the power of technology and data and systems in marketing, and it got evangelized, and a lot of companies were built in marketing before they really got built in sales. And over the last, gosh, maybe it was like 2016, 17, that's when you started to see a lot of the sales tech companies starting to take off. So this is back when it was like SalesLoft, Outreach. I was actually working for a competitor of SalesLoft and Outreach in 2015. And SalesLoft was 30 people. Outreach was, I think, like 15 or 12 people at the time. And then those were obviously two of the big winners in the space that really took the market share. But now we're seeing really sales and marketing coming together and aligning, you know this too, but around the RevOps term. And this was probably 18, 19, maybe even 20, where RevOps started to really take off. As at that time, I think it was more of an idea, and a lot of people did a really good job evangelizing this idea of revenue operations, but I think few actually were able to systematically do it and do it well. And then now here we are. I think we're seeing a lot of parallels.
That's great. I love the fact that you brought up the category term MarTech. Sales tech is still a term that people don't use. They will use sales tech stack, and they don't think about it as a market. It really, a lot of things fall in this MarTech kind of category or description. On the RevOps side, there's definitely been a overemphasis on tools. And that's where I think that go-to-market engineering, first, Clay really evangelized the term. It really is just stitching together tools. There's still going to be a lot of people who choose to buy, but we're going to enter an era of those who choose to build. And we'll get into that here in a minute, because you can have the ability to build your agents, whether it be through a tool like a Clay or a Cargo or an Octave, and then deploy those and integrate across. So I'd love to kind of dive into, first talk about your marketing with Substack and your podcast, and then tell us about what you do for your clients.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So my Substack really, it got started because it was me scratching my own itch. And I think, honestly, I think a lot of the best things get started that way. But basically, I started this, gosh, I think I'm on issue number like 15 now, which means 15 weeks ago. But the idea really was there's a lot of smart people doing a lot of cool things out there with tech and with AI. I want to go talk to those people so that I can learn what they're doing, learn the different tools, stay up with the latest and greatest. Because that's the biggest challenge, at least for me right now. And honestly, a lot of the CMOs I talk to. But there's so much that's happening right now. I barely have time to do my own job as a CMO, much less learn all the new tools and tech and all this, the new AI coming out right now. So it was me going, okay, let me just go talk to other smart people. So we have people come on like Jeff Ignacio, who was a big name in the RevOps space, coming on and showing what he's doing and the tools that he's used and the workflows that he builds for himself. And I recently had Josh Carter on, who's the VP of Revenue Operations over at Pavilion. So if everyone knows Pavilion, they're the biggest private community for go-to-market leaders. So that's the foundation of my Substack. And every once in a while, I'll have a solo episode where I just go on and show you something that I built. Like last week, I built a really cool clay table. So let me show you how I built it, and let me give the template so you can just plug it into your own instance and go.
I love that. Love the comment of scratching your own itch. Same thing I'm doing here with the podcast. I want to meet other people, and I want to focus on the builders and then the executioners, because I know you're a marketing guy, but there's so much overhype around this stuff. You want to talk to people who built it and find out, why did you build this? And how is it best deployed?
Okay. On that comment, I'm so glad you brought that up, because this is what I've noted. I'm sure you've seen it too, but the people who make a living creating content and selling content and having newsletters and all that, whenever something comes out, they make it like the biggest thing ever. Headlines that are like, the lovable killer or the ChatGPT killer or whatever. And it gives you that FOMO. But if you follow the actual analysts and the industry experts, they'll give you the real stuff. So I think you really have to approach that stuff with a grain of salt. Like, I get a lot of tactical how to use some of these tools from those people, but I'm really cautious with what I read from those headlines, because again, like I remember probably the biggest example of the difference between the two was when ChatGPT or when GPT-5 came out. Everyone's, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. You can't believe the things that I'm doing now. This is such a game changer. And then you look at the actual analysts, the people in the industry, the people who are actually using this stuff and testing it and doing evals and all that stuff. They're like, oh, that was underwhelming.
Yeah.
And you get the real scoop from them.
I love that you brought that up. I work in the world of RevOps and building ARR waterfalls to help companies value other companies or to build to exit readiness. And they used a retention analysis curve. And I'm like, this was the most basic sensitivity analysis that you could have done.
Yeah.
There was no commercial practical value of showing that, but it created a great visual with colors and lines. And I'm like, this is where, the marketers, they're excellent. I respect people who are able to be consistent and creative. And that is a skill set and a muscle that takes time. All of us who are single shingles or solo founders, that is a hard thing to do. So I respect them.
Exactly.
But the issue, like the point of this podcast, and is people talking to people like you who are building tables, and or building tools and deploying tools. I want to take a step back here and how the framework I've mentioned a few times. In this world of the era of AI disruption, you have three kind of categories. You have the agent users, like people who are going to use GPT or go use a Phantom Buster or go use a tool. Then you have the agent makers. And these are your low code developers. They're going to use a Clay or a Cargo or Revenue Labs or Momentum, where they go and they build these agents or NAN, and they build them through connecting nodes on Clay, moving cells or column descriptions on a table. So you have your no code developers, your agent makers. And that's what's so exciting right now is you have just like this panacea opening that so many more people can now build these agents.
Yeah.
Then there's when I have shifted further, I guess we call it upstream, into the CLI. And those are the pro code developers. And when you're able to run multiple agent developers all day, every day, overnight, then the world opens up so much more. And I think people have to find out, are they going to be a user, a maker, or a pro code developer in this world of AI agents?
Yeah, I love how you broke that up. I never thought of it like that, but I think you're 100% right. And then find one, commit to that, stick to it. And honestly, even if you're bouncing around a little bit, I think there's a lot of value to that, but really pick one lane, get really good at that. And I think that's going to be the way that people build their careers in the future, is getting really good at one of those three things specifically.
And that's why I bring that up, and I didn't tie it back to your comment, but the scratching the itch comment, so much is about, you want to learn something, do a project and figure it out on the fly. Right now, we're both in a go-to-market engineering school, and it's extremely helpful. And there's so much value to have someone say, been there, done that, this is how you do it. Yep. But when it's on yourself, you have to learn it. So like for you, building out your Substack, which you have a great presentation of your Substack and get your podcast going, you have scratched the itch, you figured out how to do this stuff. And I'm doing it as well in a different world. But this idea of just start and you build something. And it goes back to this idea of like, why I think Substack is so good for the industry and for individuals. The old famous quote of thinking without writing is only thinking about thinking. And like when you are forced to do long form format in Substack, as opposed to short form format in LinkedIn, Substack really forces you to clarify. And you got a great Substack going on. And I think that just is a one way that you can see a differentiation in people who have long form content, who think deeply about stuff and can add a lot of value to clients.
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I try to keep it very practical and very hands-on with that Substack. Honestly, another part of it too was I got tired of all those. I'm sure everyone's seen it, but it's here's this crazy N8N workflow that I built that automates my entire, and all you got to do is comment below and I'll share you the template that you can copy and paste it, and then you copy and paste it and then it doesn't work and everything breaks. I just got so tired of that sort of thing where I'm not going to gate anything, and also I'm going to build something that actually works, that's actually useful, and at the same time teach you, because as half of the game, probably more than half of the game, it's just debugging, it's figuring out why things are broken or why you're not getting the exact results that you need, and then going in there, tweaking, learning, and then from there, the next iteration of whatever you're building is going to be better. But nothing ever works right out of the box the way that you think it should be or that they say it can be.
Preach it. Let's go and dive into that. What are the challenges with developing a culture where you're using agents or using go-to-market engineering tools? And I think the one you just brought up is a cultural or a social challenge of understanding that the first shipment is not going to be right. It's iterative. So walk through how you think about that, how you help people with that.
Yeah, okay. Great question. The way that the work that I do with a lot of my clients is most of my clients are relatively early on, as in they're either seed or series A, and we have a few tools, we have a few people, but the processes really haven't been built out, and they really haven't been built out to scale, which is the perfect time to bring in your more strategic systems thinker, your GTM engineer, RevOps, whatever you want to call it, but some mix of those two. And first, actually, they went over this really well in the GTM school yesterday, but I like how he put it. You start with defining the constraints, and then you're investigating the processes. You're asking the right questions, getting the requirements, putting those documents together, and then you define the output, and then you can start to actually build along the way. And I thought that was really well put. I never thought about it like that, but I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I do is, start with those constraints, you're figuring out the processes, and then your requirements to get to your end goal.
So talk us through, give us an example, because I think you said one of your favorite things to do is to help companies find lookalikes and then to educate or provide those lookalikes to the reps. Walk us through your favorite tool, your process, and how you help companies.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Yeah, this one that I mentioned, it's my most used by my clients and most most liked because by other marketers that I give it to because it's very actionable, it's very helpful, and it can help their sales team right away. So they're seen as a great resource by the sales team, and they get that respect for the sales team. Again, I most of my world is other marketers. I of course know a lot of other CROs as well. But the idea, so I built this specifically in Clay. It doesn't have to be Clay, but Clay is probably the tool that I'm most dangerous in, that I know the most about. But you start off with a close one deal, and from there, we want to find companies that look like that, but not just any company. You can actually start to filter and refine that a little bit. So a company like this, but is in North America, has this much in revenue, this many employees, whatever that ICP is that makes the most sense for you. And you can build on top of that some AI. Clay is using Claygent, right? But you can look at things, you can ask it, okay, now go do research on this company and tell me if they're B2B or B2C or B2B2C and whatever questions that you have. But you're looking at those companies, then you're filtering it down to figure out those lookalikes that really match your ICP. And then we can start to do some enrichment on those companies. So pulling in everything that you would need to know for a rep to go out cold or hopefully slightly warm to these companies. But of course, you need the people. So now I'm taking that list of companies and I want to find the actual buyers at those companies. So you're writing to a new table your buyers. And then from there, you can enrich that with everything that you need to know on a person level. And then from there, I'm starting to build more. I'm using Claygent to start to get more points of data that, again, make the most sense for my organization. One of the clients that I work with, it matters a lot how many sales people you have on your team and how many sales hires you have open, headcount you have open. So I can use Claygent to now go ask those questions. I can also use Claygent to do things like look at news out there in the last 90 days or 60 days or whatever and tell me, have they launched new products? Have they made new key hires? Have they been mentioned in the news? Have they had their leadership been on notable podcasts in the industry? All those sorts of things, because those are the things that now reps can use to do that outreach, to make a connection and start a conversation with that company and those key people. And then what I'm doing is I'm taking all of that information that I got. They live in different cell or different columns within Clay, but I want to put all of that into one spot. So I'm using the Google Docs integration. So I'm pulling all of that into a Google Doc. And then I am taking that Google Doc and I'm slacking it over to the rep. So all it takes is close one deal. And then all the rep sees is the output of here's all the information that you need to know about this company that looks like this company that you just closed one. And now go start that outreach. Now we could, if we wanted to keep going with that, we can actually start to use their Octave integration where we start to actually write personalized, quote unquote, personalized messages with AI specific to each of those people. So looking at different fields that we just used AI to research, now here's my company information. Go write a personalized intro paragraph. Go write the CTA. Go write the snippet where we talk about you have a customer that looks like yours and here's the results that they're getting, those sorts of things. So there's a million different ways that we can keep building on top of this, but that's the foundation of that whole workflow.
Yeah, I love how you started that with this is the most used workflow by your clients. Let's unpack, take it a little bit higher. So for a CMO, CRO, or CEO who has a fill the funnel problem, that's typically where you have a lookalike workflow come in. So you don't have enough pipeline coverage in the world of RevOps. You want to have a 4.5, 5x pipeline coverage, sometimes 6x, depending on seasonality and industry and business. But you need to fill the funnel for a marketer. But you don't want to just fill it with just anyone or anything, and you don't want to go out and buy the list. And so Clay and this lookalike analysis, which can be done in multiple tools, provides the ability of who is buying our product now, how can we go find more like them?
Exactly. It's what are the companies that have the highest propensity to buy? I know one strong signal is companies that look like the companies that already have bought from us. Exactly. Yeah, how I really think about the fill the top of the funnel problem is there's always on campaigns that I like, and this is one of those always on campaigns. And then there's, okay, let me enable my reps to go do the personalized cold out research and outreach and that sort of thing. But like we can stack a lot of these always on workflows on top of each other so that companies that are just getting started, they're not closing 10, 20, 30, 50 deals a month. It might trickle in, starting off with a handful at most, but we still need to fill that top of the funnel. Okay, what are some of the other things that we can do? Another one that I just built is look at all of our G2 competitors on G2. Now I can actually automate. Let me look at all of the less than 5-star reviews. I can pull that in. I can pull out sentiment, and then I can start to say, okay, here's the common problem that this company cannot solve. We can do that really well. Now I have a list of people. Now there's some challenges with G2 because you can leave anonymous reviews. Okay, that person is very unhappy with XYZ tool. I don't know who that person is, but I still get signals that
Yeah.
this company doesn't do it. But there are other times where the person does leave their full information, and now I can go reach out to that person, obviously. Those more mature markets where companies have hundreds or even thousands of reviews, another great play for, but still you can set that up now, even if it's a smaller market or the incumbents aren't huge. You can set those up, and again, the idea is I want to have a bunch of always on campaigns that have a high propensity of prospects who fall in here have a high propensity to actually purchase from us.
Yeah, let's once again bucket these use cases. So first use case is fill the funnel, and you can do that through a lookalike analysis from a closed won new deal. And typically, I know 6 Sense and Demand Base, they reference for every closed won, you should be able to create 500 new lookalikes that have a high propensity to buy using firmographic revenues, geography, ethnographics, CRM, or other technical tools. And then the one I like is psychographic of, are they expanding right now? Are they launching a new product? Did they just raise a seed round? Where are they emotionally at? So lookalike analysis and prospect list building are the two most common use cases of GTM engineering. Then you brought up two really key things I would call next level go-to-market engineering, which is around messaging and positioning. So your comment around Octave with messaging and sequencing, and then using G2 to identify where your product is best positioned based upon competitors' products. So those are two primary use cases that you brought up. You have any other ones you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, gosh, I could probably go all day about just plays and workflows that I've built. I think another one that a lot of people, okay, there's two that I think a lot of people, it's hiding right underneath their nose, but they don't pay enough attention to. So it's the first one is just looking at people who have landed on their website. So this goes back to your psychographic data, and we visited these certain pages, and you can start to look at the intent or the content on those pages and infer intent. And then the challenge used to be, I've got so much traffic to this one page, but who? Now you can use tools to de-anonymize the web traffic, and then you can use tools the one that I'm using right now to build out this play is Unify GTM. So we can look at people who are landing on these pages, and then I can automatically trigger plays based off of de-anonymizing the traffic, qualifying them, routing them to the right play, and then launching that play. And then the other one is, and you don't even really have to have crazy tools or GTM tools for this. It's look at your closed lost opportunities. Look at your people who have requested a demo but didn't show up to the demo or never actually booked a demo. But take a look at the people from that time period between 6 and 12 months ago and start to outreach to those again and run your standard play to those people. The good thing is you already have some data, first party engagement data about those people that you can use to start those conversations. So a GTM engineer could surface those people to the reps, again, give them the information that they need to go reach out to those people, but don't make them go, okay, don't just say, here's the account, now go. You say, here's the account, here are the fields that you need to look at, here are the interesting pieces, templatize that, turn that into a process, and then all the rep has to do is say, oh, okay, here's the data that I need, let me craft the email in this way, and now I'm off and running.
Going back to the use case of fill a funnel, and I think mentioning which I refer to as dark funnel visibility, website visitors, is you've got all this top of funnel that you have no visibility on, people hit your website. And then this gets into, I think we're going to see a resurgence in website design, because as you know, with Octave or AirOps or other tools, they will go to your website and read your blogs. They don't read Substack yet, so be mindful of that.
Yeah.
And they will develop a brand kit or a brand messaging and positioning. And so for those listening to this call, I know Kyle Poyer talks about the importance of putting your pricing on your website. More and more, that is super important because with go-to-market engineering tools, you can do dark funnel visibility, de-anonymize the IPs, reverse IP lookup, and most importantly, you can see who hits your pricing page. And now you can talk about who are interested in buying now, like they are showing research to pricing and budgeting, versus those are hitting your resources or your landing page just looking to learn. And then you can bifurcate those two. Then you, once again, you move to more clarity around buyer intent versus just like research.
Yeah, the first thing that came to mind was we are talking a lot about systems and tools and processes. And I do think the winning team will have really good GTM engineering, but I think that's not actually enough. I think that is only one piece of the equation because the more that I think about it, like a lot of this stuff is if you don't have good messaging, you're just amplifying the shitty messaging that you already have. And I was just thinking about this yesterday that like the teams that are actually going to win are the ones that have the engineering, but also have the content, the creative, the actual reason to reply, not just that here's all these cool signals, now go figure out what to do with it. It's okay, now I need to match that like it's message, it's market and media match. Like it's all three of those things. And then timing obviously plays a big role into it too, because if someone is not in market, but like your GTM engineering skills can uncover a lot of these things that make it the right time right now to reach out to someone. So again, message, market, media match, I think is going to be the thing that helps companies win in the future. GTM engineering plays a big role, but GTM engineering alone is not enough.
Yeah, I love that. I think people listening to this kind of figure out you and I can get in the weeds, but also come back up and talk. So let's stay high level here for a second. The importance of meeting your audience where they're at is so key. And so we know that there are more people in the buyer's market right now, in the market buying than usual, because there's just a proliferation of tools. This overhype of, oh my gosh, like you see all those YouTube videos with someone with like hands up and a big like eyes wide open. Yeah, you did it yesterday and the day before. It's like you watch the news channel every 5 minutes is breaking news. It's not breaking if it happens every 5 minutes.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, this is where we talk about operationalizing this, because I think in the world of marketing, I think marketing does a better job working with product. I know RevOps sometimes does not get involved with product enough. And so inherently what we're talking about is productizing and systematizing go-to-market process. And so you actually have a go-to-market engineer who is, people, if they have them, they should be hiring for them or leveraging an agency or a fractional someone to do this, to build a product, to go fill the funnel, to go create speed to lead, to conduct data mining for expansion or for follow-ups or for reaching back out to close loss. And so all these things, and inherently that is iterative. Going back to the beginning of our conversation, is you have to figure out on a quarterly basis of what worked this quarter, because you think about the sales cycle, and then how should we tweak it for the next quarter. And what that gets into is in this multi-dimensional view of ICPs. And so you should not have just one ICP. You should probably be testing 4 to 6 at any given time, and then iterating on those and saying, oh, we're seeing traction with this process and this messaging to this ICP. And in a previous episode of this podcast, we had Nicholas Wagner on talking about Additive, which is building the knowledge graph to create and pull all these meeting conversations, sales meetings conversations, and create that knowledge graph to understand what is landing and what's working, and then apply that to ICPs. But so that's like top level of like voice of customer. And then that goes into like the messaging context engine of Octave. And then someone like yourself or others can utilize that. So how do you think about it as you do a CMO fractional assignments when you think about marketing, media, and messaging? And do you think on a quarterly basis? You think about a semi-annual? How do you operationalize this?
Yeah, okay, great question. Going back to when I said most of the companies I work with are earlier on. So for companies that are seed stage, Series A, that they either are finding product market fit or they're verifying that they do have that product market fit. Speed of learning matters more than anything else, right? And if you're running a bunch of tests, but you're not learning, you're not documenting, you're not actually iterating positively on that, it really doesn't matter. So everything that I do, I take the principles that I learned from growth and from people like Morgan Brown and Sean Ellis, where we're looking at our tests, we're defining our tests, we're looking at our success criteria, our failure criteria, we're systematically setting up these so we have our clear methodology. All of this is documented, right? And then we're doing our sprints, and then we're saying, okay, at the end of the 2-week sprint, did this meet our success criteria, or did it meet the failure criteria, meaning we should move on to the next highest possible, or the next growth sprint that we think has the highest potential, or should we now start to operationalize it? And that could mean systems, it could mean tools, it could mean people, but prove out your channels first, and then you can start to stack them on top of each other. In the beginning, smaller companies, it's more important to do this quicker and learn as quick as you can at low risk as you can. But for those bigger companies, and for companies that have, and it goes hand in hand, but bigger companies will have bigger deal sizes and longer sales cycles and more people involved in the process. So you can't necessarily do a lot of those quicker sprints. And hopefully you have a lot of your systems and your tools set up already, like your foundational layer, some of those things that you know are going to work, that are just kind of always on feeding the top of the funnel. And then you can start to look at optimizing, but also when I'm working with later stage companies, I take a slightly different approach, because there's, okay, what can we get that incremental improvement from? So 10% here, 10% there over a bunch of different things really adds up. But also, where can I actually take a 10x swing? And I have a little bit of more budget at these bigger companies where I can start to do some more higher risk, higher reward campaigns and motions, where it's not just, okay, I need that 10% bump, but okay, I've got this, I don't like to call it fun budget, but essentially this fun, but like never go to a CFO and say, I want a fun budget. But essentially it's, because they're going to say no every single time. But essentially it's, okay, here are things that I can play around with, that I can go now experiment with, that if it fails, I'm still going to hit my number and I haven't wasted my budget. But if it succeeds, then I'm now a hero for the quarter. So it's slightly different at the different stages of company. But I think overall, in today's market, speed of learning is going to matter across the board, but it's just a different kind of learning.
Totally agree. Before I get to that, can you clarify, you working with these startup companies, you mentioned sprints. Are you referring to the traditional 2-week agile sprint, or how are you thinking about timing of these marketing tests, if you will?
Yeah, it does go back a little bit to, it depends on what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish. So going back to one of the other things, there's so many tools out there, right? And I got to play around with all these tools, and it almost forces you to do a sprint. So a lot of these tools out there, you'll have a 2-week free trial. Okay, that's a good forcing function for me to take these 2 weeks and go do this sprint real quick and figure everything out, put it together, and go. So it depends. Like, I know it's a real consultant answer, but the answer is that it depends.
Yeah, but that is the key. I think we're in this, I think the term go-to-market engineering really hit kind of late Q1, early Q2 in 25. Maybe it's because when I clicked on Clay and Everett Berry, he walks through his, like, how they audience track you and follow you, which is excellent. If you have a chance to listen to him, it's excellent. Yeah. And so, yeah, I've been getting overrun by Clay ads since probably February, March. But anyways, it gets into this idea of, like, how do you operationalize, and like the speed of learning to operationalize all these opportunities of new tools and new technology. And so I think that really comes back to this idea of, you can be a technical practitioner or you can be an operational executor. And it's like going back to these use cases and speaking iteratively and thinking about trying this stuff. And inherently it forces you to become good at 1 to 2 or 3 tools, or 1 to 2 to 3 use cases. I think list building, top of funnel is always going to be there in marketing ops. I think CRM research and integration is always going to be there in rev ops, but then connecting the two together. And then the piece that no one's talking about, which I find so fascinating, is how do you relay this all into CAC visibility for the finance function? Because you now have the ability to say, by this ICP who I source through these tools and cost me this much, when I go out to this volume, I should close X number. And now you can get to this return. And as I'm sure you know, with Clay, you can get a list of like 5,000 high ICP scores for like under $100, like $50 or less. Whereas if you go to Fortune 5,000 and you click, I want to download the list, they charge you $5,000. So there's a simple arbitrage of $1 record versus pennies on the record. And so that's some of the exciting things, and you can be able to deliver that into CAC visibility CFO is, I think, a place that I'm working towards. And find super interesting.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And you know what? I think the future leaders in revenue, whether you're a head of sales, head of marketing, whatever, like I really do think the future leaders are going to be the ones that are really good at being able to have that strategic high level thinking and be pretty in the weeds itself and be able to go back and forth between the two relatively frequently. I think that's one of the hardest things to do is have the operational knowledge, but also have that strategic knowledge and stay up to date and go back and forth between the two. One of my favorite CROs out there is Kyle Norton, and he talks about this, and I think he's spot on when he said those are the most effective leaders. That's what sets good apart from great leaders, and I really do think that's going to be the future of your revenue leader.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I'm going to plug veterans here because as veterans who've been on the ground and had to make decisions on pulling a trigger or organizing personnel, and then to be able to understand the strategy impact of their actions, as a veteran, I'm going to plug them. And then, so Brandon, as a future CMO and strategic leader, tell us, what is your strategic North Star as you help these companies and think through not just deploying practical technical execution of go-to-market engineering, but how do you advise these CEOs on their strategy?
Yeah, I think a lot of what I am helping companies do or pushing companies in this direction is trying to predict their market and have a real thesis around the market and a strong stance, and then be able to execute on that, because markets make companies. It's not how much funding you have, it's not how loud your marketing or how aggressive your sales team is. It's the market that makes the company. The kingmaker is the market itself, and then how big a piece of pie of the market that you get, that's on the CEO and how they execute their go-to-market team. So I'm always really taking a step back and saying, if we want to be successful in the long term, because it's both going to be beneficial for you, obviously, and me as well. For you to be successful in the long term, it's going to be how you understand the market, react to the market, and plan for the future of winning in that market. So I really do think it's all about the market.
Is that a Brandon Ringer original quote, that the kingmaker is the market? I love it.
I think so. I just pulled that.
I'm going to use that. That is awesome. You should put that. That's awesome. Yeah. So let's just, like, for those, really simple, it's like, every company has their challenges, and you may think that, like, we're high speed or that we're awful. Hey, guess what? If you're average in a growing market, you're going to grow.
Yeah,
versus
exactly.
if you are high speed in a slow growth or declining market, you're not going to do very well.
The ceiling is low. The ceiling is really low with those.
Yeah, that is great, Brandon. I think we're going to end on that note. The market is the kingmaker, and you need go-to-market engineering to really accelerate the growth effectively, efficiently. Thank you for coming on today. And how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is probably the place I am most active. Feel free to reach out, connect. If you connect with me, just leave a comment in the connection request. Those are the ones that I pay attention to. Otherwise, if it's just a plain connection request and no message, I will likely ignore it.
Interesting. Yeah. Most people, because that's the trick, is like 80% of people will accept a connection without the comments. And that's why people get these no comment connection requests, because it's part of a sequence. And then it follows up with the second sequence. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, hit me up on LinkedIn. And of course, my Substack and Scale.ai.
And what's the name of your podcast?
Yeah, Stack and Scale.
There we go. Brandon Redlinger, Stack and Scale AI. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Will.